From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. Good show tonight. Tennessee General Assembly is back in session. One of the issues that will be discussed this year, as it was last year, is whether or not to legalize medical marijuana. That bill is going to come back up. It will have two Republican sponsors. We are happy to have both of them with us tonight. Senator Steve Dickerson, Dr. Steve Dickerson, thank you for being with us.
Great to be here.
And Representative Jeremy Faison from Cosby, a Republican. Thank you
for having us. Thank
you for being here. All right, medical marijuana. It didn't pass last year. Senator Dickerson, what are your thoughts about it this year?
I'm more optimistic this time. And the reason is I think the debate and the argument has really grown. I think the evidence has gotten better and the support has gotten stronger. There are now 29 states that have some form of medical cannabis legislation already enacted. And so I think Tennessee really now could say we're not leading the pack, we're solidly in the middle of the pack. And if we don't act soon, we'll be behind, I think, the curve. I sponsored the bill 2 years ago, and really what it's all about, and I think Jeremy and I would agree on this, is making Tennesseans' lives better. And we try to do that in many ways. We try to have good roads. We try to have good education. We try to have low taxes and balanced budget. This is one thing I think where we're getting a consensus that this will also enhance the lives of Tennesseans. I think it's going to make our sickest Tennesseans healthier. And it's something we're both committed to.
And all right, Representative Faison, what would this bill do and what would it not do?
It's a great question. What we're seeking to do is set a foundation for Tennessee. So basically from seed to delivery, we're going to have access to medical cannabis. So we put in the bill how you would go about applying for a grow, how you facilitate the grow, how you'd get a dispensary. We've also put in the bill how a doctor could go and do some CMEs and be able to recommend the medical cannabis to the patients.
What is the CME again? What is that?
Continuing medical education, I guess.
Okay.
You're correct.
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
CMEs, is that right?
Yep.
All your professions, you go and get continuing educations, any licensed profession. And so there's something we put in that you'd have to have CMEs. The Department of Health would recognize those CMEs, give you the ability to write a recommendation. The patient could get a card from the Tennessee Department of Health along with a recommendation, go to a dispensary, be able to get whatever form of cannabis that the doctor's recommended.
So this is, I guess, all right, this does not legalize marijuana in Tennessee, right? You're not going that far.
No.
It is strictly medical marijuana. And how do we know? I guess it's a doctor prescription, or how do we know that it's just for medical here?
So I'll tell you, it was interesting. Jeremy gave a very good overview of what the bill was. I'll tell you what the bill is not. And that's not an excuse to get high. And it's very much not that. So if you think about where we are as a society right now, reports, though I can't substantiate this, some of the advocates for this bill will tell you that marijuana is actually the largest cash crop in Tennessee, and it's in the top 3 in all 50 states. Okay. And I can't substantiate that, but it really does sound quite reasonable. Recreational marijuana is widely available, and I think if you're a 16, 18-year-old kid in Tennessee, might be more available than liquor. And so we recognize that. We don't necessarily like that. But we also think that marijuana in the medical field has real usefulness, has real utility. And I'm a doctor. I treat patients. I'm an anesthesiologist. I actually have subspecialized in the treatment of chronic pain. And I can tell you, my patients don't have access to cannabis. And a lot of them want it. And those that actually do get it, whether they've gone to another state or whether they've traveled abroad, are to a person convinced that this is one of the answers, one of the real keys. And so what we're trying to do, and again, what he very nicely summarized, what this bill's about is trying to get it into the medical realm so it's legally available to the sickest Tennesseans. One of the concerns we have, one of the problems and the real impediments is the DEA and the FDA and the federal government has decided to keep cannabis as a Schedule I substance, and that puts it on a par with heroin. If you actually look at the schedule, the lower the number, 1 is the worst, going down to 2, 3, 4, 5. Cocaine is actually Schedule II. So the federal government thinks cannabis is more dangerous than cocaine and does not recognize any medical utility. And so what we're trying to do is work within that sort of framework and against that sort of impediment and try to make it available to Tennesseans. You mentioned prescribing, and that's the point here is no medical society will support the term prescription. And so it's more of a recommendation, or in some cases we just have to say, yes, you have a disease that qualifies under state guideline for the use of medical cannabis.
And yet there was opposition to this last year. There probably will be opposition to this again this year. And the opposition is going to say this is the beginning of legalizing marijuana in Tennessee. We've got to hold a hard line. It is a gateway drug. Right. When you hear that, what do you say?
Let's take both of those. First of all, I would take a fundamental objection to someone saying that this is the beginning to recreational use. We are talking specifically about medical grade cannabis that has nothing to do with the recreational use of the plant. As a matter of fact, from my studies, and I've studied, if you've seen the news, I've traveled to Colorado, the people who are using medical grade cannabis, they don't even have a desire to get high. We're talking about completely something different here. The people that I've met, they realize that cannabis offers them a viable alternative to what conventional medicine has failed them. What does that mean for your listeners? I have a little lady in my district and friends that I've met all across this state who, for whatever reason, the medicine that conventional medicine has given them, there's major side effects. A little girl named Josie Mathis, she takes cannabis oil now, we made it legal, but the medicine she was on for seizures, her parents had to sign a waiver that it could cause her to go blind, that it could potentially shut her kidneys down, that it could shut her liver down. They had to sign a waiver saying, we know this is going to take place for you getting this. So what we're doing is nothing to do with recreational. This is strictly to take care of people like this who are chronically ill. We've listed out in our bill specific targets. Now, as far as it becoming recreational, the interesting thing about that, legislatures in America have not made this a recreational drug. It's the people of the state who have done that. And the safety mechanism for us in Tennessee is we're not a ballot initiative state, if you will. It's extremely difficult to get something on the ballot to change the Constitution in Tennessee. It would have to go through 2 general assemblies and then be brought up during a gubernatorial race. These other states, they just need a handful of signatures. They can get something on a ballot and the whole state can vote for it. It's not like that here. So I don't, unless the legislature agrees with it through the authority of the people, we're not going to be a recreational state. What we're doing is specifically dealing with specific illnesses and allowing medical grade cannabis to be grown.
And you're a doctor.
Correct.
Have you seen a need for this in your practice?
Well, yes, and so if you look at one of the biggest public health concerns in Tennessee, it's the opiate abuse problem. And if you read the Tennessean, if you look on the news, it's literally a daily story, and appropriately so. Now, to give some credit where credit's due, we've hit the curve on opiate abuse in Tennessee, and we've seen what we call the morphine equivalents, and that's kind of how we generically talk about it. It's actually decreased by about 1/3 over the last several years. So we are getting a handle on that, but it's still a major problem. And many studies and a lot of experts think that cannabis, and it's not one size fits all. There's different grades and there are different constituent chemicals in cannabis can actually help alleviate the need for opiates, or at least lessen. So there's in healthcare, there's it's called a multimodal pain management theory, and that is a little of this and a little of that. It's kind of like Goldilocks, little of this, little of that. It's better. You get kind of that happy medium, and so maybe a little bit of a pain medicine, a little bit of a local anesthetic, a little bit of aspirin, plus a little bit of cannabis might be better than any one medication in large amounts.
Do you see a time when you would support recreational use of marijuana?
At this point, no. And frankly, we've got a lot of states that are out there. And one of the beauties of the federalist system is that we've got 49 other states in the District of Columbia that are out there experimenting with different public policy. And if Colorado wants to do it, that's fine. That's not really a discussion for Tennessee. And to echo what Jeremy said, this is not a ballot initiative state. Any law that gets passed, any constitutional amendment, by definition, has to go through his chamber and my chamber and have the governor sign it. And frankly, this is such a heavy lift for us with medical cannabis. I think the prospect of recreational marijuana is fanciful at this point.
And you say it's a heavy lift. Have you gotten any flack or blowback for supporting this? I mean, you're 2 Republican lawmakers. I mean, what has happened as far as that goes?
Well, I obviously, the amazing thing for me is I have only received less than 5 people from my district who were worked up about it. Overwhelming amount of people in the legislature, our colleagues are like, I can't believe you're doing this. They're frustrated about it. But it comes because we've been given fake news for something you've heard about a lot in the news, fake news. We've been told fake news for years now, for 80 years about this plan. And so if you believe something, accepted it as truth, your majority of your entire life, to divorce what you believed and accept truth, you have to let go of a lot of pride, and it's very unstable ground for you to get there. And so that's what he and I are dealing with, is trying to help our colleagues unlearn what we've been told all our life.
All right. Do you want to add to that? Or?
I was just going to, again, echo what he said. My biggest resistance is not from my constituents. It's from the members of the General Assembly, who I think are sort of set in their ways, and as Jeremy said, have sort of heard the same story and the same half-truths and the same again, the stories that really have no foundation, in fact. And if you actually go out and talk to the constituents, it's overwhelmingly popular. Davidson County, probably 80-85% of the people, and I think Vanderbilt just did a study that showed about 75% of Tennesseans want to have some sort of change in the law. And so I just think we need to get the representatives and their constituents together, and I think we'll have a lot better luck.
All right, we have a bunch of calls, so we're gonna take a break, and then I'm gonna come back. We're just gonna go through these calls. Sandra, Hunter, everyone, hold on the line. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.